Our next presentation will be conducted by Dr. Houman Sadri and Dr. Madelyn Flammia. They will be presenting practical approaches to developing global competency across disciplines. Dr. Sadri is an associate professor in the Department of Political Science at the University of Central Florida. His research interests include Middle East politics, terrorism, globalization, American foreign policy, and international relations and organizations. Dr. Sadri is the founder and faculty advisor of the UCF, Model United Nations Program since 1995, and his students have won many awards in regional and national model UN competition throughout the U.S. He is co-author of Intercultural Communication, A New Approach to International Relations and Global Challenges. Dr. Flammia is an associate professor in the Department of English at the University of Central Florida. She teaches both graduate and undergraduate courses in technical communication. Her research interests include international technical communication, visual communication, and global teams. Dr. Flammia has given presentations on intercultural communication at professional conferences and for corporate audiences. She is co-author of Intercultural Communication, A New Approach to International Relations and Global Challenges, and the editor of the Society for Technical Communication Anthology, Perspectives on the Profession of Technical Communications. Please welcome our presenters.
We're very excited to be here, and we're going to be talking about a new project that we're working on, although it's grown out of work that we've done together for many years.
We'd like to thank them for introducing us. But before we start, we would like to use this opportunity to thank the organizer of the conference, especially Professor Naguib, who has been extremely instrumental. One of the things they mentioned is that we are from UCF, and I do not know how many of you know anything about UCF. I mean, you know that you are in UCF town, is that right? UCF is... What? Yes.
Correct.
UCF is University of Central Florida. Believe it or not, it's the second largest university in the nation, 61,000. It's bigger than the city that I live in. I live in Titusville, which is 50,000. My university is 61,000. So UCF has grown significantly, and one of the things that it has done in the last few years is, having programs to, in a way, kind of enlighten the faculty members to internationalize their courses, to internationalize, also to provide opportunity for faculty to be internationalized, to travel, to do very creative things. And through one of their programs called Faculty Center for Teaching and Learning Workshops, Madelyn and I, we met years ago. I'm not going to mention how many years ago because that's going to date us, okay? But we met years ago, and we started, she's from, obviously, Department of English. I'm from Department of Political Science, focused on international issues. And we started collaborating, truly interdisciplinary collaboration in the last few years, which led to a number of different, conference presentations, publication, and eventually to this book. And now we are going beyond that in terms of training students and different audiences for a variety of, skills. And in this particular presentation, we are talking about, practical approaches for developing global competence. Because nowadays, when you're dealing with the new generation of the students, you have to prepare them for the realities of the world. Any business, profit-oriented, non-profit, they are dealing with what we call teams that are, by very nature, many of them are culturally based in different areas, international. So if you want to make sure that your team works efficiently and effectively, all right, you need to develop skills for these people that, they can communicate with one another without rubbing each other in the wrong way. Because as you know, in the businesses, they say that, basically any kind of conflict, is that right, is basically a waste of, time and energy.
And what we've decided, originally, we both had a lot of international elements infused into our courses. We're very committed to internationalization of the curriculum. And so working together, we found ways to develop courses in global citizenship that allowed us to bring together students from both of our disciplines, but also students from other disciplines who took our courses, and had them work on projects that would raise their awareness and develop their global competency. But now we want to go beyond that, and what we want to do is find a way to develop assignments that faculty across the disciplines can use to internationalize their courses. And I know this probably sounds like a very ambitious project, but we're going to tell you how we're going to go about that and how kind of that all came about. And one thing that Houman did not mention about our university is we're going to have 200 new faculty members this fall, and we're going to have another 200 faculty members the following year. So our goal is to help those new faculty members, some of whom may not have experience internationalizing their courses, to have a way to do that. And that's the project that we worked on in our most recent collaboration at our most recent summer conference this just past May.
Exactly. We like to start with a quote from one of our favorite books. The book is right now back in the highlights with the new with the
Today.
Exactly today actually.
The second book is released.
With the second book coming coming from publication. I think that this quote says a whole lot in terms of thinking, trying to understand other people. I mean, look at what it says, all right? You never really understand a person until you consider things from, his point of view. Well, said by one of the, obviously the main character over there. I have built actually in some of my courses, role-playing exercise, and we have a number of other exercises that we're going to talk about today in terms of how we would develop, skills like that.
I was worried that I wouldn't get a chance to do any exercise today, but apparently that's not the case, because I like to exercise every day. So, Stella Ting-Toomey is a well-known intercultural communication scholar. We've had an opportunity to study with her, and this is one quote that we like to use with students. And we really infuse the concept of mindfulness in all our courses, and it's one of the central things that we focus on in our book. And the reason that mindfulness is so valuable in intercultural communication is because you can be a mindful intercultural communicator if you don't know anything about any other culture, which is unlikely. But even if you don't have to know anything about any other culture. You can still be a mindful intercultural communicator because all you have to do is be aware, realize that people may do things differently than you do, and try to make the other people feel comfortable. If someone greets you in a very formal manner and you're used to being informal, maybe you'll respond more formally than you normally would because that's going to make them more comfortable. So it's a question of being aware and adapting.
Okay. Now, in general, in terms of what we're going to cover today, we're going to start with obviously providing you with some ideas like what do we mean really by global competence, but we're not going to go dig into it from a theoretical perspective. Then we talk really about the importance of developing students' global competence. Why should this be on top of our agenda? Then we talk about the assignments that we use to develop these type of competence, and then we talk about also the value of using interdisciplinary approaches. So,
of course, you're all aware there are a lot of definitions of global competency out there, and we could spend a lot of time discussing them, but they all agree that there are certain skills and abilities and certain knowledge that students need to have to be globally competent individuals. And certain abilities or certain knowledge may be emphasized more in one discipline than another. However, it all comes back again to that mindfulness, to being aware and sensitive to cultural differences. And for a lot of students, the first step is to realize that, and we all go through this as human beings. We grow up in a particular culture and we think that the way our culture does things is just the way the world is. Until we have experience, until we have encounters with members of other cultures, we may not realize. And then sometimes the first reaction is, oh, that's different, I don't like that, I like doing it my way. But what students need to do, of course, is to step beyond their own cultural comfort zone to really learn about global competency.
yeah, as Madelyn in a way kind of referred to this, so what we mean by global competence, which is, one of the definitions for it would be a set of skills, abilities, and knowledge. And as I was listening to the previous keynote speaker, I was just thinking about actually one of the other things we talk about, we haven't mentioned it over there, is experience. Like for example, he was talking about internship, if you recall. Is that right? So experience in that regard is also very important. Now, in terms of an overlap of developing skills associated with different type of information fluency and global competence. Okay.
And we're not going to go through all these bullet points, although they're certainly available to you if you're interested in them. But we want to make the point that there are certain things that we feel that students need to do both to be information fluent and to be globally competent. One thing that we challenge our students to do is to conduct research in non-US sources. We feel that that's really important because that's the only way they're going to get other perspectives on the work that they're looking at or the topic that they're studying.
Exactly. Now that can be done through basically internet, and as you know, many of our students nowadays are very knowledgeable how to find information here and there. But sometimes what they have a challenge with is understanding what's the value of that. Is this information accurate or not? I usually try to warn my students to, about warning articles from Mama and Papa's, Pizza Gazette or something. I mean, what is the source? What's the value of that particular source? Let's see.
Also, using technology. All of our students know how to use technology really well. In many cases, they know how to use it better than we do, right? But just knowing how to use the technology does not mean that you know how to use it for an effective purpose. In other words, in one of the virtual team projects that I had my students do, they were collaborating with students in Ireland and France. And we allowed, the other teachers and I, allowed the students to choose the method that the teams would use to communicate. In other words, they could use Google Docs. We had a virtual learning environment that they could use. They could choose how they wanted to communicate with their team. So one team was very excited and said, well, we're going to use Facebook. That's how we're going to communicate for our team because they like Facebook and they use it all the time. Well, it wasn't long before they came back to us and said, we've decided we're not going to use Facebook because even though they like it and they're very familiar with it and they look at it every day, that's not really the best means for team communication, and they learned that very quickly. So there's a difference, we would say, between knowing the technology and knowing how to use it effectively and efficiently for a particular purpose.
Exactly. We have used, for example, teleconferencing. In my classes, we have used teleconferencing, connecting our student at UCF with student in Ghent University in Belgium, Udmurt State University in Russia, and different universities, especially METO, Middle East Technical University in Ankara, Turkey. And each one of those have been enriching in experience for a lot of students, but at the same time, the technologies has provided some challenges of their own.
So again, we think that by having students study global issues from an interdisciplinary perspective, they're automatically going to be more prepared because they're going to be looking at these issues from at least two different perspectives. And the other thing is they're going to be working in teams. I believe it was Tom, our previous speaker, was talking about the importance of teamwork. And for example, my students in technical communication will find themselves working on teams with engineers, with graphics specialists, with marketing specialists. So they have to know how to work with people from other disciplines. And that also comes into play when we're looking at global issues, because most global issues span, for example, health. Health issues don't stop at one border, at one national border. They spread around the world. And if there are health crises, they need to be addressed, and usually they need to be addressed by a team, and they need to be addressed by people from other cultures and people from other disciplines. So this is one way that we can prepare students for their role as global citizens and workers in the global workplace.
Exactly. In addition to that, in the Department of Political Science, usually we encounter two types of students. One type of students are very open to international issues and they like to learn, and then we have a group of students who are interested in just domestic issues, and there's nothing wrong with that. But I try to let them know that it doesn't matter which track you use, we like it or not, are going to be exposed to international issues. I usually give them the example of Professor Pat Manning, who studied the U.S. Congress, laws, and then he found out like about 85% of the laws that Congress passes, they have an international dimension. So then that way, their awareness of how that one affects them, it increases.
And also, we want our students to have a framework that they can take away from them. And we're going to talk more about how we accomplish that in our global citizenship course, where we structured assignments so that by the end of the course, most students were working on a real-world project that would really address a particular global issue at the local level.
Closer to mine.
Too,
Absolutely.
too far away? Okay, sorry. Okay, nice and close. Yeah, that's better. We kind of touched on some of these already. We're all very aware that the workplace is global. Here in Florida, I have students who tell me, you know, well, I'm just going to work for so-and-so company in my hometown, and why do I need to know? One student said, you know, why do I need to know this sensitivity stuff? He was very dismissive of it. But the point is, and the fact is, that even if they stay for that, working for that one company here in Florida, they're in a very diverse environment, and they're going to have customers, they're going to have colleagues, they're going to have suppliers, clients, people from all over the place who are here in Florida or who are coming here to work. So I believe it was Enterprise Florida said that our 9.7 million plus workforce here is one of the most culturally and linguistically diverse workforces anywhere. So, you know, it doesn't matter where they go or if they try to stay in their own little area, they're still going to encounter the need for being part of the global workplace.
Exactly. I'd like to advance it actually to the next one, okay? So in terms of that, then we have a number of, you know, assignments to develop these type of, you know, hopefully after they become more aware of if they like it or not, the issues is going to come to affect them. We have a number of assignments to
Yeah, we can
help
go
them with
right
that.
to the assignments. Yeah.
Exactly.
And the way we designed the sequence of assignments is they can be used as a sequence. In other words, you can start with the internet research assignment and end with the presentation, or for our colleagues in other disciplines who might want to adapt some of these, you can just pick up any one assignment and use it. It works that way as well. Now, in our global citizenship course, we use these as a sequence, where the students began by doing internet research, non-US sources, looking at different perspectives. They went on to do a report on a particular culture. I call it country, but it could be culture. It, you know, essentially, a lot of times if you're looking at Japan, you're looking at Japanese culture, but we had one student who researched the Sami culture because his ancestors were from that culture. And obviously, that is not tied to one particular nation, but to the Scandinavian region. So it can work either way. And then they have an interview with a subject matter expert, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. Then we, depending on the course, sometimes it's an individual assignment, sometimes it's a group assignment, but it's an assignment where the students have to use what they learned in their research to address a global issue at a local level.
Exactly.
And then finally, they present what they did in either on campus to another class or in the community, so that what they've learned, the information that they've developed, is shared with a larger audience than just our class.
Okay. A little bit more detail about, for example, the first one, internet research assignment. Not only this assignment is supposed to help them to understand other cultures, but also I basically started this one as UCF started growing, and my class size started getting very, very large, from 24 students to about 100 students in each class. So it was becoming very, very difficult to, frankly, manage huge term papers in each one of the classes. When you teach 3 of these courses, you have 300 students, So then I started coming up with these ideas of smaller assignments, and that at the same time I wanted the assignment to be effective in a way that they really get something out of it. This assignment, internet research assignment, is supposed to be, it's a weekly assignment. It's supposed to be about 500 to 700 words minimum. I always specify minimum, but the average assignment coming out from students, when we are reading it, is just about 900 words. That's quite impressive. And what they're supposed to do is, of course, they start with a list of, weekly readings that they do. And then after that, when they finished and they review that and they cite it clearly, so we know that they've actually done the reading, then they move on to the internet and then they start finding articles from different perspectives. They're supposed to present at least 2 different perspectives, for, against. So then that way, they're not, basically, captured by the editorial policy of a particular source or particular perspective. So if they are, for example, liberals, they usually say, oh, no, I don't want to report this one and that one. I say, no, look, it doesn't matter what point of view you are. You're not going to be getting, scores for your point of view, but how well you defend, Sometimes lawyers, they have to defend people that they feel like they're guilty still, and they have to defend them. So you need to present those point of view, and that's really good exercise to get them to start thinking outside their own, their own perspective. That has come out to be very, very helpful.
Okay, this one, the interview with a subject matter expert in another culture, is actually the assignment that many of our colleagues, because we do have colleagues currently pilot testing these assignments, and many of our colleagues were interested in using this assignment. I feel that it's a valuable assignment because it allows students to learn about the practice of a particular profession or discipline in other cultures. And the way I did it, the first time I used it in a class, what I did was, in the field of technical communication, we have a professional organization called the Society for Technical Communication. It's an international organization with chapters all around the world. So I contacted the chapter presidents of all the different international chapters and said, do you have anyone in your chapter who would be willing to have a technology-supported interview with one of my students? And so the students interviewed people in New Zealand, in Israel, in Japan, in Hong Kong, and they had great experiences because they learned, oh, well, you know, in New Zealand, they don't do it quite the way we do in the US as far as practicing the profession and you know, what is important and how we communicate. Things are different. So that was a really valuable assignment, and I think it's a valuable assignment because it won't take up a lot of class time. The students enjoy talking to someone in another culture, and they can choose if they want to Skype or they want to email or how they want to do it. And so it really opens their eyes to what's going on in the field in another culture. And also, this assignment works really well in terms of having students use technology for their research. And it's an assignment that the students enjoy. You know, they had fun with this assignment. And then one thing that I do, of course, and I know that you do as well, Houman, is I don't let them just ask a bunch of questions off the top of their head. They have to craft questions and get them approved before they go ahead and conduct the interview. Also, then they would report back to the class. So everybody benefits from all the interviews, and everyone learns a lot about the profession and how it's practiced in other cultures.
Okay.
We kind of already touched on the country research report.
Right.
The idea is to have students learn about some key variables like politics, economics, technology, education in other cultures. For technical communicators, knowing about education in other cultures is particularly important because when you're writing instructional documents, you need to know how people are used to learning information, and it's not the same in every culture. So then from that, we can move on. That leads into another assignment, which can be an individual assignment or it can be a group assignment depending on your course and how you want to handle it. But the goal would be that students would take what they learned and then somehow apply it. I'll give you one example. In one class that I taught, one student wanted to research the Philippines because she had relatives there. And one thing that she learned is at that time, this was a few years ago, but at that time, a lot of people in the Philippines were being victimized by international employment scams. So she developed a brochure to present information to warn people about these scams.
Exactly. All right.
Was it effective?
Yes, yes.
Very effective, yes. And then last but not least is basically presentation. We want our students to be able to communicate that idea not only on paper, but also orally with an audience. This is sometimes kind of challenging for some of the students because some of them kind of on the shy side. But majority of the students that we have had, you know, we haven't really had much of a challenges. In fact, those that they started kind of shy, then sometimes you could get them, you cannot get them stop talking after a while. So that has been, in that regard has been kind of very, very positive. And then especially in my field, what I try to do in political science, you know, of course, you know, presentation is very, very important. And I try to get them, you know, after that one to actually go to conferences and present at local conferences, statewide conferences, national conferences, and we have sent actually a couple of students to international conferences as well.
And one really fun presentation was a group of students in one of our honors global citizenship courses developed a curriculum for 5th grade students to teach them about the United Nations because the concern was that they didn't learn about it until they were in high school. And so what they did was, that was their presentation. They went in one day to that class and taught that the curriculum that they had developed.
Exactly. Now, what's the value of interdisciplinary approaches? Well, when you talk right now with a lot of scientists, they usually say that some of the newest and best ideas are going to come from individuals who are trained cross-discipline. I had friends in Arizona. They were engineers and they went to medical school because they were interested in developing tools that surgeons can use. Well, a surgeon maybe has some general idea about like what they want, but they do not know how mechanically they have to put it together. And maybe an engineer knows how to do it, but does not know exactly what to do with that. So I mean, I was exposed to this one from early age, and I noticed that among our students right now, those students who are combining, for example, political science, international relations with other fields, from even math to other sciences, hard sciences, and others. They seem to be doing much better. And I can see the result of it, in fact, in sharing a number of what we call honor theses. For our undergraduates, honor thesis is not a requirement. Writing a thesis is not a requirement. But those of them who do that and they combine the areas, the quality of the research is excellent, really good, at undergraduate level. Okay.
So we've touched on some student outcomes, but what we found in general, and this is not something that we have yet quantified, but through taking our global citizenship course, and we've taught a version of this course 3 times, often students decide that they want to study abroad, or they want to study another language, or they want to go on to grad school in some field that has an international focus. We also had one particularly successful project that was done by a team, and these students worked with an organization located here in Florida in Fort Myers called the Educational Concerns for Hunger Organization, or ECHO. And what they do is they do many things. They train people in agricultural and technology, and what they do is, as one of the many things they do, is they give plants to farmers in different regions, particularly in the Caribbean. So these students developed a handbook that could describe and give information on the various plants that were being given to farmers in the Caribbean, particularly in Haiti. And they were very ambitious. One of the students was a Spanish major, so they translated it into Spanish, and they also had a friend who was able to translate it into Haitian Creole. So this, I'm not suggesting that all our projects are like this, but this is an example of how they really got involved and were able to take action at a local level to impact a global issue, world hunger.
As Madelyn mentioned earlier, one of the projects that we are doing is right now being used as a pilot program. We actually made presentation about this one during the most recent faculty workshop, and we are very glad to report that a number of the faculty members from this workshop at UCF are actually using it. In fact, I got an email this morning that there's going to be actually a meeting about this week.
So all these different disciplines, they're pilot testing it this summer, and they will also be pilot testing in the fall. Our goal is to take all the feedback from the pilot testers, revise the assignments, and then move forward to be ready to share them with new faculty members. And we will be presenting further information on this research project at a conference coming up next March.
Exactly. You can see that it it really diverse disciplines, all the way from engineering to sciences and soft sciences, social sciences. Well, we would like to actually stop our presentation right here and see if there are any questions, because for us it's always a great opportunity to have interaction with the audience. We always learn something from you. Thank you very much. Yes.